So this is one of the weirdest guitar pickups I've ever used. Let's check it out. So yeah, the Submarine Pickups Sub 6 is definitely a very unique pickup. It is a hexaphonic pickup that can install very easily on any guitar with essentially double-sided adhesive tape, non-marring adhesive tape. If you're not familiar with hexaphonic pickups, they're usually used in conjunction with guitar synthesizers. This one, however, is standalone, and it's comprised in the one case of 6 individual pickups, one for each guitar string. And as you saw from the cable in the initial shot here, it outputs 6 individual audio signals. So that means you can plug the Sub 6 into 6 different guitar amplifiers, if you have them, or you can, as I do, plug them into 6 channels of your audio interface and run them into your computer to treat each string separately. So I'm going to head over to Logic Pro to show you how I am setting up patches for the Sub 6. But before I do that, I do want to let you know that Submarine Pickups reached out to me and asked if they could send me the Sub 6 free of charge. And of course I said, heck yeah. So let's go on over to Logic Pro. All right, I've got Logic Pro fired up and I've plugged in the 6 outputs from the Sub 6 into 6 channels of my audio interface and run that into 6 different channels in Logic Pro, which means I can configure and treat each string individually. So let's just hear what it sounds like out of the box, like just plugged into Logic Pro. That's a pretty boring sound, isn't it? But you may have noticed that I have done some panning. So put on some headphones or listen to this on good speakers. The high E string is panned a little bit to my right. B string is to my left. G string is to my right. There we go. D string is to my left. The A string is almost in the center, but just a little bit off to the left. And the low E string is in the center. I like this. So we have a stereo field without doing anything. Now, it is pretty boring sounding. I could go ahead and add a reverb onto all 6 strings. I've got all these channels running into a bus, so I could add a global reverb. And by the way, that is the Logic Chromaverb, just the stock reverb. That does improve the sound, but I don't really like it. So let's go back to the channels. So I'm going to open up channel 1, and the first plugin I want to talk about is a compressor. So what I've done is taken a Logic Pro stock compressor and added a compressor to each of the 6 channels. So there are 6 of these guys across all 6 channels. Let me go ahead and turn on all 6 compressors. Yeah, that's actually a lot nicer. Yeah, the great thing about having 6 compressors is that I can customize the compressor for each string. So if I want a little bit more gain, a little more compression on the high E string than the low E string, I can do that. This is the beauty of this Sub 6 pickup. All right, the next thing I wanted to do was add some amp modeling. Again, I could add 6 different amplifiers using amp modeling software, a different amp for each string. In this case, I wanted a consistent sound, so I decided to add the same amp model to each string, and it's part of the Logic Pro stock amp designer, and I've selected a Fender style amp model. So let me go ahead and activate that for all 6 strings. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now it's beginning to sound like a guitar. And again, you can hear that panning. I love it. It's great. All right, next up is actually an overdrive. I wanted to make it a little bit dirty, so I used a stock Logic overdrive plugin to add overdrive into each of the 6 strings. So I can now do that. It's not crazy. I'm just adding a little bit of dirt. Now, if I did want to say add a lot of overdrive to one string, let's say the high E string, that's at 12.75. Let's crank that up. You know, I could go ahead and do that. I could also add, say, a fuzz for each string separately, which is a really cool effect. But let's go ahead and move on with what else I've got going on. Next up is a gate. So I'm using a noise gate after the amplifier, and part of the reason why I'm doing that, this pickup is pretty quiet, but when you start adding effects, what can happen is, since there are essentially six individual pickups in the case, you can get some hiss buildup. So I just added a noise gate to calm things down. Let's go ahead and throw the global reverb on and hear what we have. Yeah, it's really nice. However, what I'm hearing is I'm still hearing a separation between the dry tone of each of the 6 strings and that global reverb. So I want to add a little bit more to what's going on. The next thing I want to talk about is delay. So I'm using the Valhalla delay plugin, and I'm using 6 instances. I've got one for each string, and I won't bore you and pull all of them up, but I just want to show you that I've got them all set a little bit differently. Here we go. Here's one string with 930 milliseconds, the other string with 525 milliseconds. Just to drive home the point that you can adjust these plugins individually for each string. So let's go ahead and turn on our delays. Ooh, that's really great. So as you can hear, the delay is being panned in the same way that the dry string sound is being panned. And then I've got some ping pong going on, so it's very complex. That's really great. Now, I did add one other thing to really kind of change the tone of this patch, and I'm using the Enveloper plugin or Enveloper, depending on how you like to pronounce it, from Logic Pro, and I'm using it to create an auto swell effect. Now, the difference between using this with 6 strings and just across the entire guitar signal is I can control the swell separately for each string. And as you can hear, I'm just using it to kind of take the edge off the attack of the string. that's great. Now, if I add the chroma verb in on the bus across all 6 strings, here's what I get. Oh yeah, I really love that patch. Now, in addition to just the sound of the patch, because the strings are panned in different ways, you can get some interesting call and response effects. If you remember from earlier in the video, I said that the high E and the G string are panned to my right. The B string and the D string are panned to my left. So if I play carefully, I can actually use those 2 pairs of strings as kind of like 2 different instruments. Let's check this out. Isn't that nice? Now, you got to kind of think about it. It's a different way of approaching the guitar, at least for me. I don't think of my guitar as potentially multiple instruments. So it's a little bit of a head thing, getting yourself into the zone of being able to visualize different strings as different instruments. I'll have a link in the video description below. There is a discount code you can use. Submarine Pickups kindly gave that to me to pass along to you if you are interested in the Sub 6. I will see all of you on the next video.